But, Mark, let's move on. Talking about the Cleveland Browns now, moving on from the Cincinnati Bengals. They are also in Ohio. They also have the initial CB, and their team is also orange.
Yep.
So, basically, we're almost talking about the same exact team besides the players on it. Kind of previewing the Browns like we do every time we do one of these previews. They were 13th in offensive yards per game with about 669 last year. They were 20th in offensive points per game, around 22 per game. Defensive yards per game, they were ranked 30th, one of the poorer defenses in yards per game, giving up 393 yards, and were 21st in defensive points per game, giving up about 24.5 points last season. And with free agency, man, were the Browns busy this free agency period. They re-signed Phillip Gaines. They bring in Morgan Burnett. They signed Sheldon Richardson. They signed Greg Robertson. And that's pretty much all the moves they made, right, Mark? They didn't make anything else. Oh, wait, that's right. They also traded with the Giants, and they brought in OBJ. They bring in Olivier Vernon while sending Jabril Peppers and some draft picks off to the Giants. So the thing I will ask you, because there's a lot that I want to unload with this team that is kind of picked up since we last talked about them. But the thing that I want to ask about first, and this might be similar to the Bengal question, but I'm going to phrase it differently. What should the expectations? I asked about goals with the Bengals. What should the expectations be when it comes to the Cleveland Browns in 2019?
Depends on who you're asking. There's a lot of.
I'm asking you.
There's a lot of. Well, let me tell you how it goes. A lot of Browns fans out there that think they're winning the Super Bowl. I don't think there's very many Browns fans that think the team's getting worse. I don't know if there's any really out there. There's probably one. There's a lot of people in the media that say Browns are the darling. They're going to win this division. They're going to be amazing. Baker Mayfield's the greatest thing ever. There's other ones like Colin Cowherd who thinks he's the worst thing of all time. But really good for the ratings. And, there's just so much back and forth. There's nobody who really thinks they're going to be in the middle. And my personal opinion on the Cleveland Browns is this team is going to be spectacular. It's either going to be spectacularly amazing. This team's going to be awesome. They're going to win a ton of games. They're winning the division, going to the playoffs, going to make a run, or spectacularly terrible. And there's just too much new to me, to this team, that makes me just nervous. I mean, Baker Mayfield's in his second year, but I still consider that new. You got Odell. You've got Kareem Hunt, who is suspended. He's going to be here as well. You've got a new coach who I know he was, having some interim time last year. But
I keep forgetting they have Kareem Hunt on this team.
Yeah, he's there too.
I forget that because he's suspended.
But he exists. He is there. They've got who? Let's see. I feel like I'm missing another big one. Olivier Vernon. They've got him who's new as well. They've got Greedy Williams who's new, who's got a big chip on his shoulder. This team is one giant chip on the shoulder of Cleveland.
But doesn't that fit like the city and like
it does, but does it go well or not? It depends on how they manage it.
Yeah.
What they really need, so I don't know if anybody is into metal. And specifically this kind of metal, but there's a band called Metallica.
Yes.
You might have heard of them before. They've got a few songs that people like to play.
Have a lot of baggage, too, in their history.
They do, and that's exactly what I'm saying. So if you've ever seen a documentary, there's Some Kind of Monster, I recommend it, even if you don't like Metallica.
Was that the one where they were looking for a new bassist?
And that's
where they got the Hawaiian guy that I can't remember his name.
Who is fucking amazing as a bass player and loves to do the crab walk thing, which is like, all right, really good bassist. Crab walk thing is weird. Where I'm going with this is in this documentary, the band basically falls apart while being filmed, and that's really cool. But they end up basically getting a therapist, like a marriage counseling type of therapist, a group therapist, to help them bridge the gap and get their whole band marriage saved. I feel like the Cleveland Browns need a marriage counselor to come in and make this work. And I know people are going to be like, oh, you guys are just judging, all these guys who are fine. But there's just so many big personalities that, like we say about the the Jaguars and the Seattle Seahawks, it's really great when it works and you're winning. It's not great once you start to lose. And I'm not saying the Cleveland Browns are going to lose, but they were a losing team last year. They did not have a winning record last year. And people are trying to crown them. They brought in a lot of players. They bought a lot of hopefully wins for them next year. I just think that they need to be very careful managing the situation and managing this locker room and hope that things go right. Because I'm not going to be a person who's calling out Baker Mayfield or anything like that, or calling out Landry Jones saying this one player is going to ruin it. But I just feel like there's too many guys on this roster who are not going to be shy to start calling people out.
Well, here's how I think of that. You're right. And the thing that I look to is what's going on already, and I want to bring Baker Mayfield into this because he's a big part of it. Recently, there was news that Duke Johnson has told the team, like,
trade me, please.
Basically, trade me because I'm not being, like...
I was brought here to play, and now I'm not going to play.
Well, I mean, you got to think about it. Like, he was one of the main backs because Isaiah Crowell was not that good.
Yeah.
Then they draft Nick Chubb. All right, I'm now a second stringer, but, running back by committee, second stringer can still get some touches. Now they signed Kareem Hunt. So, now he's the third guy out, and it's like, dude, just trade me.
After, what is it, week 4? He's probably not going to touch the ball more than, 5 times?
Yeah. And Baker Mayfield came out, and basically in his quote, from the CBS article I'm looking at, you're either on this team or on this train or you're not. And how I feel with the Browns, and it kind of goes into what you're saying. Not necessarily the winning and losing. Once one person, and losing will kind of spark this.
Yeah, make it happen.
Once one person disagrees with the status quo, once one person disagrees with something that rubs somebody else the wrong way, boom, the match has been lit, and then the fire's starting.
And I wasn't going to bring up Baker Mayfield in that case just because I didn't want to. But I do. I do too.
His personality is going to, like it or not, that is your own part. I'm not going to say, oh, well, I want my quarterback to be this. No, I'm not getting into that discussion. But as the quarterback, he is going to be front and center.
Yep.
Love it or hate it, his personality is going to be the kind of... what am I looking for? The brand of this team.
It's the team's personality.
Exactly.
And here's the thing for me. I wondered about Baker as he's a guy who likes to talk. And I was wondering about him. I'm like, how is he going to react when somebody does what Duke is doing, what Duke Johnson's doing? Is he going to still stand up for his guys? Because he's standing up for Odell as much as possible. But that's because Odell's one of his guys. Odell's on his side.
Once you're not one of his guys.
That's what I was curious about. How is he going to react to that? And I think we just saw the answer a little bit of well, you're either with us or against us. And it's like, well, sure, that's a fine attitude to have in a way, and I get it to a point, but you're not making the case any better. And it kind of goes into the Colin Cowherd thing, which is ridiculous at this point, where it's like, Baker, by responding to him, you're giving him what he wants. You're just feeding into it. He loves it. You're giving him the ratings. It's wonderful.
Making the shirts,
you're
the
making
land
it
versus
worse.
the herd.
Yeah, you're making it worse for yourself. And I know that he kind of thrives off this, but it's the kind of thing where Baker can't shut up. And I don't want people to get mad at me for saying this because Baker's a great quarterback. I like Baker Mayfield enough. But he can't shut up. He's that kid in the class who won't stop getting in trouble despite the fact that now the kid's grades are terrible because he's never in class because he's constantly in school suspension
or
something
just
like that.
It's or it could be like the funny kid where it's like at first you're like, that's kind of funny. And then after a while you're like, dude, just shut the fuck up.
But
you're not funny anymore.
But what I feel about it is so if he can't stop. He can't help it.
He doesn't have that off switch is what you're saying.
Which is awesome to an extent and awesome in certain ways. And it's awesome because he can put that chip on his shoulder. He can motivate a team really well. But when you get a guy like Duke Johnson who's unhappy, he can't stop. he has to now go at Duke Johnson. And he didn't really go at Duke Johnson, but everybody's able to read between the lines and know who he's talking about and what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
If Odell's saying, I'm not getting enough touches, throw me the ball more, I don't think Baker can be the guy who can say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Let me go talk to my quarterback coach over here.
Yeah.
Let me just go and whatever. That's just Odell. I feel like he's the guy who's going to chirp back to an extent. And we've all made the comparison to Jay Cutler when it comes to Baker Mayfield, in the sense of you can kind of see the tide is going to turn and people are going to hate potentially Baker Mayfield like they hated Jay Cutler, where there wasn't really much of a reason. It was just like I just don't like his attitude, things like that. And I fear that for Cleveland fans, because I want Cleveland to be good, and Cleveland's got so many great things, and Cleveland's my favorite to win the division at the moment. But I just think there's so much that could potentially go wrong. It's like when you ignore all the red flags because you're like, yeah, but we have a lot of fun together with this new relationship you're in. It's like this team can have really great moments, but is it all going to come tumbling down because a lot of big personalities, new head coach, defense had some struggles last year. Baker's got to come back strong for year number 2. This is a team that the second they do something bad, they are going to get criticized more than anybody else, with maybe the exception of the Patriots. They will get criticized so tightly.
And the thing that I kind of think of from what you're saying is, it's kind of like, I've heard this before too, of like that first year. I want to say this was, I was listening to Chris Sims talk about his dad say this, Phil.
Yeah.
And basically it's like that first year you're in the league, you kind of get a little bit of like that rookie, like, well, he's a rookie, he'll learn. Like, we let you get away with stuff because you're a rookie, because you're new. Yeah. It's like when you're on the job. Well, you made that mistake, you did this. We kind of let you get some free passes.
And Baker didn't really look like much of a rookie his first year.
I'm not saying play-wise. I'm saying now attitude-wise. Yeah. Where last year it was like, oh, well, it's his first year. He'll learn how to do things. And I feel like what's going to be the big thing, and this kind of pulls in now what Cowherd has said, is like Colin mentioned, he brought up the police tape from college. He loves to bring that up. And the thing that I kind of was like, and it got me thinking, was when Colin was like, he doesn't think of the consequences. When it was cops stop him.
Because he's never really had consequences.
Basically, when the cops stop him, not well, if I run, what will happen? It's just I can outrun this cop, gets tackled. Doesn't think about what the consequence is now. Yeah. Now that he ran from a cop that probably would have been an easy, like, hey, you're drunk in public, like, kind of a thing. Now you've got a resisting thing on top of it.
And honestly, Baker Mayfield wasn't going to get a ticket.
No, he wasn't. He's Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
But then also you've got the other thing, like the grabbing the crotch thing in college. I saw that as a little bit of a red flag.
I don't care about that
only because it's like, not because of like what it was the person. It leads into this of like, will he be able to shut it off? When he's in a press conference following a loss, like we saw how Cam Newton melted down, right? And I know it was a Super Bowl, but we know how Cam Newton melted down, and Cam Newton kind of got quiet and was like, fuck it, and just walked off. You know what Baker's going to get like after a big loss, after the media's asking him questions he doesn't want to answer? He's just going to start firing. And that's not going to be good for the Browns.
Exactly. And I wonder about that. Is that something that we're going to end up seeing?
The mouth is just going to start doing this, and the brain ain't going to think before it says
For me, and unless he, is just an absolutely amazing quarterback and he just progresses following this path that he's already started, which is totally possible. But let's say he doesn't. Let's just say he is an average quarterback in the NFL. He's a good quarterback. He's a good starter. Maybe he's like an Andy Dalton. You're not going to replace him. He's good, but you're not being, an Aaron Rodgers team. And he starts chirping at people, especially like the media and stuff like that, and he can't shut up. That's the thing that's going to end a career early. Eventually, you do have to kind of move past that. like I said, unless you're just an absolutely amazing quarterback,
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, if he wants to chirp at somebody, he can chirp at somebody. No one's gonna ask Aaron Rodgers any questions. Same thing with Tom Brady. If Tom Brady starts insulting the media members, they're gonna say thank you, Tom. They're going to let that happen.
But Tom doesn't do that.
But that's not my point. If he did, they are such incredible quarterbacks, it's acceptable. Drew Brees could do it.
I'll say this, kind of like Big Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
Big Ben
you let
talks
them
shit
get
about
away.
his receivers. He's still there.
You let them get away with things. If Josh Rosen starts talking shit about his team, Josh Rosen's not going to have a career anymore. It's going to end really fast.
Like Aaron Rodgers. Talk shit about his coach. Who
Coach
got
got
fired? The coach got fired, not
right?
him.
Aaron Rodgers, who just donated a shit ton of money to his college, Cal. They just got a nice, sizable
Stimulus package.
right? And it was just like, and I think it was 7 figures is what they said. And it was like, I feel like you could have done something better with your money, but whatever. And I don't want to see a talented player who has promise get bogged down by all this stuff. At the same time, people always say, yeah, but do you want to see him just do the Peyton Manning type of answers? No. There's a ton of middle ground, and that he doesn't have to be Peyton Manning. He doesn't have to insult media members. He can be somewhere in the middle.
Is this team, and I'm going to say this now, is this team, like the future of this team with like chemistry, could they look in the mirror and look at the Steelers and go, that's where we could potentially be headed? Because, like, I'm not saying, like, that OBJ and Jarvis Landry
No, I get what you're saying.
are going to hate each other, and with Baker are going
they
to
are
hate each
friends.
other. But like you said, that one thing happens to throw a gear in it. Big Ben and AB didn't hate each other the whole time in Pittsburgh. It was just recently.
Well, I mean, think about here in Chicago. Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall were best friends. Since the Broncos days, they were best friends. Couldn't wait to play together again.
Yeah.
And then as soon as Brandon Marshall gets shipped out, it's like, that's the worst person I've ever seen. He murdered my entire family. Like, he acted like this was his absolute dead enemy.
Yeah.
Things change, especially with big personalities in the NFL. Half these NFL superstars are incredibly egotistical, are incredibly narcissistic. And especially at a position like the wide receiver, that's part of it.
But especially when you're a top end like player, you've been fed great things.
And that's my point of the sense of
like comments.
You are going to feel like if anybody wrongs you, it is not going to be something you just brush off. Not a lot of these kind of star players are going to do that because that's just not who they are. That's not their personality. There's a lot of potential for something to go wrong like that. But personally, I don't feel that's something we see this year. If that's going to happen,
that's going to be a future thing.
That's going to be year 2, year 3 where it starts to crumble, much like the Killer Bees. They didn't crumble right away. They were amazing, and then they started to fall apart. So you've got some time, and I think if you're a Cleveland fan and the Cleveland Browns team, they really need to strike while the iron's hot on this one. And they definitely can. There's a lot there where they can do it.
And the thing with this team, kind of going back to what I asked about expectations and everything, and just what creates more pressure is, first off, I love what Freddie Kitchen says, and you brought this up in the past, of basically, we got to stop acting like last year was a good year.
Yeah.
Like, we had a losing record. We got to stop acting like 7-8-1 was a good year for us. But I look at the schedule, and I feel like Super Bowl or bust? Probably not. Playoff or bust. If this team misses the playoffs, that, like, this year, we've been talking a lot about turmoil that may happen. I don't think we see anything this year. I don't think it blows up this year.
Exactly.
But God forbid this team misses the playoffs this year.
They're going to get criticized.
They're going to get criticized. This team's going to get, like, in the offseason, we're going to see things come out of the woodwork. That's what
we're going to get another one of these Jarvis Landry speeches about how nobody can play as well as him, and this is all bullshit or whatever it was he talked about.
The one thing I will say about Jarvis Landry that I saw on Twitter that was adorable as fuck was his daughter. Was it his daughter? His daughter found a little fawn that came up to their house and basically befriended the fawn and the fawn followed her around.
Nice.
Like they were best friends.
That's awesome.
Like wherever she went, that little deer followed her. So, I mean, that was cool, but doesn't have anything to do with football. I look at the schedule, though. Tennessee, New York Jets, I'll say Denver, Buffalo, Miami, both Cincinnati games because they're late in the year, and Arizona. 8 wins. Potentially 8 wins right there. You just got to find 2 out of the other games. Is it a San Francisco? Is it you shock Seattle because you're playing it in Cleveland? Do you get 1 game on the Steelers because now they don't have AB? Do you win one of those games against Baltimore? To me, it's you've got to win those games I listed. Then you only got to find 2 games and you're a playoff team. But God forbid they don't make the playoffs and they are like a 9-7 team or an 8-8 team. That's when we're going to see that match get lit in the offseason, and it's just going to snowball into 2020.
Yeah, it's, essentially there's so many players on this team that if they don't have this success, I wonder how it's going to go for them and how they'll handle that and deal with it. I see this team, I easily can see them being a 10-win team. It's really only 2.5 more wins than they had last year, so it's totally possible for anyone who isn't a Cleveland fan and wants to scoff at that. But at the same time, I also see that this team can be like a 5-win team, depending on the way things go, and especially with this new coaching staff and how they handle this locker room. But for me, I still think this is my leader in the moment, or at the moment in the division. I feel very good about Cleveland's chances getting into the playoffs and probably winning a playoff game. I don't know if they'll win more than one, but I think they'll definitely be able to win at least one playoff game and then maybe get bounced by a more experienced team. But there's a lot of good things to be excited about right now in Cleveland. Just hope that the success lasts.
And you know what's going to be weird? Between weeks 2 and weeks 5, 3 of those 4 weeks, primetime games for the Browns. They're going to be on Monday Night Football against the Jets, and the next week they're on Sunday Night Football. Then they're off of primetime before coming back to Monday Night Football to play the 49ers. The only other one is a Thursday night game, November 14th.
And I sit there and I look at this and I'm just like, the schedule makers want Cleveland to fail so badly. They're jinxing them. This is like when the kicker comes out and they're like, he's been perfect all year. He hasn't missed a single kick. Oh, and it's wide right. You're just asking for the Cleveland Browns to be terrible if you're going to put them on primetime for this much when, like I said, 7-8-1 last year. So schedule makers are out for you guys, and if you guys have bad ceiling, you know who to blame.
And
bad season, I think I said ceiling.
And I don't want Browns fans to think, just rag on this team. I just feel like this team is they're a bunch of dynamite. You can either let it sit there and it won't go off at all, but all you need is that one thing, that one match to start the fire. And then the fuse gets lit. And then it's just time before it blows up. Will it blow up? No. But once you have that match, it will. And
the pressure cooker of as soon as Odell doesn't do well, the entire media is going to talk about it. And it's going to, as soon as Baker and Odell give each other a look that is not, a smile or a high five, they're going to say, these two hate each other.
It's kind of like, in a sense of like when Tim Tebow went to Denver. And everyone's like, it's only time before that first bad pass, that first interception, where the entire crowd's like, Tebow time. Tebow time.
I bet the articles are already written right now about their hatred of each other. They're just waiting to change the team, the week number, and send it off.
And just putting in the actual quotes from when they happen.
Well, it's not. I'm not even saying that they're going to be quotes. I'm saying that the media is going to see they looked at each other funny. I think there's something to it.
And just push that out there. But Browns fans, let us know what you think. How high are you on this team? How low are you on this team? What do we expect from this Browns team in year 1 of this one being together? Can Freddie Kitchens keep it all together? Let us know what you guys think down below.